Alright, what's up fight fans? You're watching Not Can Control MMA. I'm Dan. Today we're going to be talking about Jake Paul and his recent call out of several MMA fighters. I'm going to focus on three of those fighters today: Ben Askren, Dillon, Danis and Michael Bisping. How I think we'd all match up against each other, what I think's most likely of the three to happen. Talk a little bit about different weight classes, a few things like that. Right, so we'll talk about Jake Paul first, just a brief overview of him. He's 2-0 in professional boxing. He's fought at 190 pounds, which is a cruiserweight. He's won two of them, both knockouts. Neither of them have been against professional boxers though. He most recently fought Nate Robinson on the undercard of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Yeah, he did fine in that, but like I say, not against a professional boxer. But I think the main takeaway with Jake Paul is he doesn't need to be good at boxing. I don't think he should fight a professional boxer because it doesn't help him with what he's trying to do. I don't know if he's trying to become a professional boxer or if he's using professional boxing as a way of furthering his career in other aspects. But the main thing you can say is when Jake Paul does get into... when there's a Jake Paul boxing match on, it gets people talking about it, it gets people watching, people are interested to know what happens, and it does his, whoever he does fight, it does them a world of good for their exposure as well. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about Ben Askren first. He's 19 2 and 1 in MMA, 72 inch reach, 36 years old, and he's recently had a hip surgery after retiring at the back end of 2019. His last start was against Damian Maia in the UFC. He lost that by submission. Okay, so yeah, Ben Askren, he's not known for his striking. Really not known for his striking. His striking is not the best by any means. And I think that's really down to the fact that his wrestling's very good. He's never needed to rely on his striking. If anyone's seen any pre-UFC Ben Askren, he's a Bellator welterweight champion, number one welterweight champion. But he has a game plan. He takes people down, grounds and pounds them, either gets a TKO, or they give the back and he gets a choke out of it. That's Ben Askren's game plan. So I think because of that, his striking has suffered, because he's never needed to rely on it. He is a very high level athlete though, very accomplished in wrestling as well. Former Olympian, won multiple national championships in wrestling, and a very high level athlete. And I think if he was to put his mind to boxing with any seriousness, I think he could definitely be a problem for Jake Paul. He's fought at 170 and 185, so Jake Paul most recently fighting at 190. I don't think the weight's going to be a massive issue. Ben Askren has responded to the call out. He said he's happy to do it. I wouldn't mind seeing this one. I would want Ben Askren to take a couple of months so to get some proper boxing training in and become more accomplished with his hands before he competes something like this. I wouldn't want to see it next month, for example. I'd want Ben Askren to have a proper 12-week camp focused purely on boxing, and I think he could give Jake Paul some real problems. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about Dillon Danis next. Again, a bit similar to Askren, not known for his hands at all. He's 2-0 in MMA. The guy he fought most recently, whose name I can't remember for the life of me, had a losing record. Danis pulled guard against him and got the submission. Again, what you'd expect from Danis, he sticks to what he's good at. I'm not slagging him off for not striking because his jiu-jitsu's where he's a strong performer. So it makes sense that he would focus on his jiu-jitsu in matches. But that's not going to be possible, obviously, in a boxing match. Jake Paul rolled up on him when he was doing his interview with Brendan Schaub on Food Truck Diaries, and threw toilet paper at him and whatnot. And I think that got a massive amount of attention in the MMA media, at least. Apparently, Danis is still injured. I think he had a knee surgery last year, not too uncommon in high-level grapplers. And he's talking about he said he's willing to do it but doesn't want to do it till next summer. So this fight does happen. I think there'll be a fight in between. Jake Paul will fight someone else before he fights Dillon Danis if that fight does happen. Alright, Danis fought welterweight most recently. I think he actually came in at 175 though. So I can't see 190 being a problem for him. And I'm sure we'll agree on a weight class, probably in the 180s somewhere, if Jake Paul does fight either of those two guys. Right, last but not least, Michael Bisping. For me, this is the one I want to see the most. Bisping is 41 now. He's been retired since 2018, I think, where he got knocked out by Kelvin Gastelum in the first round. Probably shouldn't have taken that fight. I think he'd fought GSP like 2 or 3 weeks before that and lost that. But he was a former middleweight champion, and he's by far the best striker of any MMA guys that Jake Paul's called out. He is 30-9 in MMA, 75.5-inch reach. But most importantly for me, he's fought at 205 and he spent the back half of his career at 185. And I think he's a much bigger guy than Ben Askren and Dillon Danis. His striking's a hell of a lot better in either of those two. And I think would cause Jake Paul the most problems. He responded to Jake Paul's call out, said he'll fight him. Apparently Jake Paul's management got in contact with Bisping's management and got the ball rolling there. I've not heard anything back on that since then. I've not heard that fight's going to be booked. The only fight I have heard that's sort of in the works is Ben Askren versus Jake Paul. Odds have come out for that one, which is normally a good sign that the fight isn't far off being made. Yeah, alright, that's just going to round up talking about who he's going to fight. Talk about why the fight's happening. Okay, Jake Paul, as I said a little bit earlier, he doesn't want to be fighting professional boxers, and I don't think he should. I don't think it's going to help him with what he's trying to achieve. I don't think he's trying to become a boxing world champion. He's trying to get more exposure, make more money, and go down that route. He's certainly an adequate boxer. I watched an interview with his coach on the Schmo Zone, and his coach is speaking very highly of his boxing skills. Obviously he would be doing, I appreciate that's his job to hype up his fighter. But I would like to see Jake Paul fight Bisping in particular, but certainly a high level MMA striker, which Ben Askren and Dillon Danis aren't really. That doesn't mean we can't give him problems. UFC fighters, I can't see any UFC fighters taking a fight. I don't think Dana White will let them. There's nothing to win for them and everything to lose, and for Dana as well. If, for example, Conor McGregor, has been talk of that, but I don't think that's anywhere near happening. If Conor McGregor was to go and lose to Jake Paul, Conor McGregor's the UFC's biggest star by far. If he lost to Jake Paul, that massively discredits MMA as a high-level combat sport. I don't think McGregor would lose, but also if he wins, all it proves is Conor McGregor beat up a YouTuber and doesn't do anything for anyone either way. Well, obviously it does financially and hype around it, but it doesn't make Conor McGregor look like a better athlete for beating Jake Paul. And if Jake Paul beats him, it really hurts McGregor's career. So I don't think that'll happen either. Alright, that'll round me up. Just a few thoughts on Jake Paul and who he should fight from MMA. I'd be more than happy to see him fight an MMA fighter. I like the idea of it, especially ones who are recently retired like Askren and Bisping. I don't think any active MMA fighters should touch it with a barge pole. I don't think MMA fighters calling him out's doing any good for their careers as well. I appreciate there's a lot of money to be made in a Jake Paul fight, but it makes you look like you're less serious about being a professional UFC, Bellator, whatever it is, fighter. Alright, so we'll call it a day there. You've been watching Askren Control MMA. I've been Dan, and I'll see you all tomorrow.